What if the very person you hire to heal you, your therapist, is the one that is perpetuating anxiety and depression? Today, we're talking with one of the godfathers of mental health, Dr. David Burns, Stanford professor, author of the book Feeling Good and Feeling Great, which have sold more than 5 million copies worldwide. He's going to expose the truth about why talk therapy can actually make us worse. If you're ready to break free from treatments that just don't work and take control of your happiness, be sure you hit that subscribe button now, because we talk about what it really takes to get happy in the real world. Welcome to Good Mood Revolution. I am so excited to interview one of my all-time heroes in the mental health space, Dr. David Burns. He is one of the most influential figures in the history of mental health, personally training over 50,000 therapists, and his groundbreaking books have sold more than 5 million copies. A Stanford professor of psychiatry and best-selling author of the books Feeling Good and Feeling Great, one of my personal favorites, Dr. David Burns has transformed the lives of literally millions of people, helping them conquer depression and anxiety without the need for medication. Dr. Burns, welcome to Good Mood Revolution.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on the show. Hopefully we'll have a little fun and spread some goodwill and hope.
Absolutely.
And inspiration.
I mean, and we all kind of suffer from anxiety. I haven't met a human being alive who hasn't had bouts of anxiety. Why do you think anxiety is such a big piece of just the human experience?
You know, you want the 100% correct answer?
Sure.
Nobody knows. A lot of people bullshit about it and pretend to know. But, you know, if you can ask the same question of depression and guilt and shame and rage. And, you know, there's probably some evolutionary component to anxiety, I would think, that, you know, having to survive in the early days of the human race.
I like your honest answer that we don't really know why we all have to deal with anxiety, but we just do.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's right. It was probably evolutionary. There's a lot of dangers. You know, cats are very prone to anxiety and, you know, jumping away when they hear a sound because it could be a predator. And we still have a lot of predators today, more than we ever dreamed about, I think. And so there's a healthy dimension to fear and anxiety, but for so many of us, it just gets kind of out of hand, and we don't know why. There's probably a genetic piece to it. I've had all kinds of anxiety myself. And that's why I love treating anxiety. Whatever you've got, I can say, oh, I've had that too. And it's going to be such a joy to show you how to get over it.
You know, one of the things you say is that something a lot of therapists wouldn't even admit is that it's possible that your therapist might be keeping you depressed. Why do you think therapists could actually continue a depression?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say that they're doing that intentionally. They may be doing that subconsciously if you're a full fee patient and they've got a private practice. But I think most therapists have the best of intentions and went into the field because they had a love for, compassion and a desire to relieve suffering. But if you don't have effective therapeutic techniques, you and your patient might get addicted to just getting together and bullshitting and talking. And therapists fancy that that's the so-called therapeutic alliance, and that's where the healing comes. But in point of fact, that doesn't bring about a lot of healing. It's good to have a great relationship with your patient, particularly if you measure it at the end of sessions and know that you've got a great relationship. But that great relationship won't cure troubled marriage. It won't end panic attacks. It won't help you overcome depression. You need powerful tools to do that. And I think a lot of therapists, they just really take great pride in having long-term relationships with people using techniques which, to my way of thinking, can be proven aren't effective. one of the innovations I got into early in my career, I've developed short, extremely accurate scales to measure depression, suicidal urges, anxiety, uh, anger, anxiety, even happiness or marital discord. And I have my patients take them before each session starts, and takes them about maybe 1 minute to fill out these scales. And then I can see exactly how they're feeling, how depressed they are, and how anxious and angry and so forth. And then at the end of the session, and then they're worded, how are you feeling at this moment? So I can see, was the session any good?
Yeah.
And it's very humbling to have those scales, but you really quickly learn what works and what doesn't work.
Your team, CBT, that method claims to cure decades of depression in just a few hours. And
yeah, most of the time now when I see people, I tell them at the beginning, and I treat everyone for free, so I have no ulterior motive, and I've done that for 30 years. And the only joy I get is to see somebody recover. And I tell them we're going to have one roughly 2-hour session. And so we've got to work fast and get our work done. And I give them some time for empathy, but 25 minutes is kind of enough. And then I ask them what grade I've got in empathy. And if I get an A, then I go on to other more powerful techniques. And the majority of the time, measuring symptoms, and they'll go from like 100 and depression and anxiety on a 0 to 100 scale, or 80 or 90, and guilt and shame, 90, and loneliness, 80, and inadequacy, 100, stuff like that. And then usually by the end of the session, I have them measure it again, just to see how we did. And usually they're down around 5, 0, 10, extremely, extremely low numbers. Then I do relapse prevention training, and they're done. And that was my dream 40 or 50 years ago when I was a psychiatric resident, and now it's finally come to pass. And it's a great joy for me, because I just get high when my patients get high. We're kind of, the Buddhists say, we're one. And I see that in my work, because if I hurt a patient by saying something that hurts their feelings, that's the worst for me too. It's horrible. And if I see them going from sobbing at the start of the session to joy and laughter at the end, I mean, that's something that money can't buy.
So there is a listener listening to this show today that is battling depression, that's feeling hopelessly lonely, that's anxious and doesn't know how to get out of it. What would your method say to that person on this show, so that we can actually provide some relief for them today?
Sure. Well, the first thing is a little bit of empathy to say, I've felt that myself. And I know, depression's probably the most horrible suffering a human being can have. And I want you to know that there's hope. I've had over 40,000 hours of therapy with some of the most severely depressed and anxious people from all around the world, because after my book Feeling Good came out, it started getting translated all over the world, and people with the most severe, or among the most severe, came to me and still come to me for treatment. And I've never given up on a patient, or never believed a patient was hopeless. And so that's the first thing. Although, because I felt that myself, I felt really bad, and I've told myself, oh, David, you're going to feel this way forever. And it just seems so true. It's like you're in a hypnotic state, and you're giving yourself all these messages. I'll never find happiness. I'm a loser. I'm no good. I've never done anything special. I really am a worthless human being. But that's a hoax. That's a con. Depression and anxiety are the world's oldest cons, and you're giving yourself these horrible, cruel messages that really aren't even valid. They're filled with all kinds of distortions. But the things that you can do, if you're interested, you can pick up one of my books, like Feeling Good. It's very old now. It's almost as old as I am, and I'm ancient. But it still works great for people. Or the newer book, Feeling Great, and you can get them on Amazon. If you're poor, you can get a used copy of Feeling Good for just a few dollars the last time I checked, and read it and do the exercises in it. And at least 50% of people who do that recover from even severe depression within 4 weeks. So if you're willing to do something, that's something you can do. And you could also, if you're in the United States, you could try our Feeling Great app, which you can just go to feelinggreat.com and take a free ride on it. And it's kind of, we've trained AI to do exactly what I do in actual therapy sessions. It's not therapy, it's just a self-help type tool, a wellness tool. But it's I just got data on our latest version of it, the V2, and it's providing most users something like a 70% reduction in 7 negative feelings within 2 hours of the first time you sit down with it.
Wow.
Now you have to sit down and do the exercises with it. It's work. It's hard work for 2 hours. And if you're not willing to do that, I say, God bless you. And this may not be the approach you're looking for. But if you're willing to put in some work, the odds are high that can help you. And it's not expensive for a year's subscription. And if you can't afford it, if you contact us, we'll give it to you for free. So I don't want any excuses from you. If you've been feeling crappy and you'd like to take a shot at getting some joy in your life and challenging these negative thoughts like I'm no good and I'm worthless and things will never change, so you can wake up and say it's great to be alive, that there's an excellent chance that app or one of the books might give you a really needed mood boost, which you deserve.
I think it's amazing, and what you're saying is that just reading the book Feeling Good or Feeling Great, there's a 50% recovery from depression and anxiety just from reading the book and doing the exercises. And now you have data that's showing your app is making people feel 70% better on 7 different negative emotions. And it's pretty brilliant that AI could just be you. Of course, there's so much data about who you are, and you've got so much work out there in the world and your podcast and everything else that it can aggregate everything you've ever said and then present solutions as if you're actually sitting there with somebody.
But it actually can't do what you're saying, to tell you the truth. If you just go and try chat AI, it's a kind of a crappy therapist, to be honest with you.
Yes.
But we've trained it with prompts. Do this and do it this way and then do this. So it's taken us some years of hard work to get it to do what we want it to do. And there's still flaws, and we're still improving it all the time. But it is amazing that we have something like AI that can begin to do things which I never dreamed were possible.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the controversial things that I've enjoyed about your work, you said that antidepressants could be more placebo than cure.
Yeah. And this is something I'm kind of reluctant to talk about because it fires up a lot of confusion and anger and misunderstanding. But I didn't talk about it for years. I started out in psychopharmacology at University of Pennsylvania, where I was finished up my residency. And, we were told, I never completely believed, but we were told that a chemical imbalance caused depression. And so if you take these SSRIs and other drugs that boost the serotonin system in the brain, that's a neurotransmitter that would have an antidepressant effect. And I gave out early in my career on more than 10,000 occasions. I wrote prescriptions for antidepressants. And it was never because I was recommending it. It was because a new patient was demanding it. And I was afraid I might get a lawsuit if I didn't give out what everyone wrongly believed was the gold standard of treatment. But I could see that all the people I was giving antidepressants to, I rarely ever saw any effect from them. And in my clinical practice, I've always gathered data because I started out doing full-time research on brain chemistry, and I love doing research. But in my clinic in Philadelphia, we got data on all of the patients for the first several weeks of therapy. And my data showed that the patients controlling for depression severity, the patients who got cognitive therapy, which is what I was doing then, plus antidepressants, recovered more slowly and less than those who got cognitive therapy without antidepressants.
Another kind of shocking thing that you'd pointed out is that it's possible that positive thinking might actually be hurting us when we're in depression.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. See that the inclination, I can give you an example from, I'm on the voluntary faculty at Stanford Medical School. And as part of my volunteer work, I created an inpatient cognitive therapy group because the inpatients, the nurses told me they're not getting any psychotherapy. And could you create a cognitive therapy group so they'd get at least an hour and a half of, being able to talk in a group and get some tips on techniques that might help them. And I was delighted to do that. And then once I got the groups going, I went in once a week to kind of sit in on the groups and lead them and teach the nurses and the psychologists and the people, various techniques. And then I measure the moods at the start and the end of the groups.
You had said this when we started our conversation today, that your first step in any session is empathy.
Yes. Yeah. And the way I do it is I just encourage the patient to talk, and then I try to find truth in what they're saying and encourage them to say more. And then I keep summarizing what they're saying and how they're feeling and let them know how sad that I am too, that they've been hurting so much. And then when I get a sense that we're probably, at a kind of peaceful position and the patient feels heard, I say, and a lot of therapists and patients will think this sounds goofy, but I say right in the session, I say, now I'd like to have you grade me on empathy so far. And there's 3 grades. I want you to, like A, B, C, D, whatever. First, how accurately am I understanding your feelings? And number 2, how accurately am I understanding how you're feeling inside? So first is your thoughts, and second is your feelings. And third, to what extent am I making you feel cared about, accepted, creating feelings of trust and warmth? And then if they give me all 3 A's, then I go on to the next phase of the session. But sometimes they'll give maybe 2 A's and a B or a B plus. And to me, a B or a B plus is a failing grade. And because it means I've missed something very important. So then I say, tell me the part I've missed. It's always kind of a scary moment to when you're going to get graded, but it's so important. And she said, well, on how I'm thinking, maybe an A, and treating me with respect and warmth and making me feel accepted, an A, but on my feelings, maybe a B. And my heart just sank. Here I'm teaching this in front of hundreds of colleagues, and I'm getting what, to my way of thinking, is a failing grade. But I always say that your failure is your greatest success in disguise, and you should hope for failure, because then you can deepen the relationship. It's your shame is the problem, not your failure. We all fail no matter what. You've got to get graded by your patients or you won't know. And I've had sessions where I thought I was stinking up the place.
It's very brave of you, but you're committed to the best results.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
very hard. It's very, very hard to ask for that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Because you're opening your
ego out of there. It's just information.
So there's someone listening now that might be thinking traditional therapy has failed them. What's one action step that person could take today to help themselves?
If they're in therapy and it hasn't been helping them?
Yes.
Well, they're on my website is feelinggood.com, and there's a lot of resources there. They're just about all free. There's a depression test you can take, anxiety test. There's a free anxiety class. There's a free depression class. I've got the Feeling Good podcast. We're up over 400 podcasts now, and they're intended for therapists and for patients and for the general public. And we talk about techniques and explain how they work. And I do a lot of live therapy on the podcasts. There's just a tremendous number of resources there at feelinggood.com for anybody if you're willing to pick up some tools and learn about them.
What would be the tool that you would recommend? What's just
when I wrote Feeling Good, there was a very simple tool that everyone refused to use and refuses to use today. And when I was depressed, I refused to use it for about 2 hours until I finally gave in. You take a piece of paper, like here's just a piece of paper on a clipboard, and you can just draw a line down the middle from the top to the bottom, and then label the left-hand column negative thoughts and the right-hand column, realistic thoughts or positive thoughts, and then see what you're telling yourself. Write those negative thoughts down on a piece of paper, and then look up the daily mood log on Google, and then you can find my beautifully formatted brief mood survey, which is a professional version of this. Has place for your negative thoughts, and then you can look at the back of it and see all the distortions and find the distortions in your thoughts, and then see if you can challenge that negative thought. And just to give a simple example, when I was learning cognitive therapy, I mentioned a problem that I was having with a patient who wasn't paying his bill in the clinic to Dr. Beck, and he was the creator of cognitive therapy, and he told me that I hadn't handled the patient right, and what I said to the patient, I don't remember what it was. I said it would have been very upsetting to the patient, and I panicked, and I felt terrible, and it was the end of the day, and I walked to the train station to take from Philadelphia 30th Street Station out to Bryn Mawr, where we lived. And I just felt like crap, and I said, "Well, what are you telling yourself, David? Write your negative thoughts on a piece of paper." And I knew it was like I was telling myself, like you screwed up big time. They'll probably take your medical license away. You have no aptitude in psychiatry. You should start another career. This type of thing. I said, I don't need write these thoughts down. They're absolutely 100% valid, just like everyone does, just like the listeners right now who are depressed. They think that way. And then I got home, and this is when they were talking about endorphins, which is another fraud, that if you exercise strenuously, you'll get these brain endorphins up, then they'll make you happy. So I said, I went out on a real severe 6-mile hilly run. And the farther I ran, the more depressed I became. It had the opposite effect. And it didn't help me an iota, and I felt like rubbish. And then I went home and I said, well, why don't you do what you tell your patients to do? Write those effing thoughts on a piece of paper and see what you're telling yourself. And then I said, no, my thoughts are real. They're valid. And then I told myself, that's what your whiny patients say. Write the damn thoughts on a piece of paper and check them out against the cognitive distortion list. So I said, okay, I'll write them down, but it won't do any good. I wrote down, I'm a worthless human being. I have no future in psychiatry. They're probably going to take away my medical license. I screwed up with this patient, about 5 thoughts along those lines. And then I looked at them. I thought, my gosh, there are some distortions here, aren't there? Like all or nothing thinking, because I made a mistake with one patient on one moment on one day, I'm a total failure. That doesn't make sense. And it's a hidden should statement. I'm telling myself I should be perfect, but I'm a beginner. Beginners are supposed to make mistakes and learn from them. And and they're going to take away my medical license. That's ridiculous. I can see it in the paper. A local psychiatrist loses medical license for reminding the patient that he hadn't paid his bill. It's just absurd. And then I had the thought, gosh, those are not valid thoughts. And then I thought, and how do I know I've blown it with that patient? I'm seeing him tomorrow. Maybe I can tell him I felt all ashamed and bad because I think I hurt your feelings last time talking about the bill. We should be talking about how to get you over your depression. And that could even be a good thing. And then I saw the guy and my heart just got filled up with joy. And then I saw the guy the next day and I told him that, and I was real vulnerable and told him I really cared about him and felt badly that I'd hurt his feelings. And we had the best session ever. I got perfect scores at the end, and his depression came down even within that single session. The thing about the depression and anxiety, and anger too, they're like hypnotic states. They're different forms of hypnosis, but you get hypnotized in depression into thinking you're really worthless, and it seems 100% true.
This is very interesting to me. I started doing this method in my journal a year ago.
Oh, a year ago. Cool.
And the mornings I would wake up just feeling horrible.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And what were you telling yourself?
That's what I would do. I just began writing down every negative thought that would come to mind. And on one day, I wrote down 17.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Different negative, like completely different topics about just being horrible at this, and this is going to fail, and I'm messing this up, and I'm not a good dad. I don't actually care about people. All these things. Yeah. And I would just get every negative thought, and I still do this.
Oh, that's beautiful, but so painful. It's like waking up in hell.
Yes. And then I look at each negative thought and I ask myself, is this completely true?
Yeah. Yeah.
And is there a different way I could see the same situation? And then I also ask, is there any action I could take today? Yeah. Because maybe this thought is like pointing me in the direction of something that I could be doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that process has been so powerful for me.
Fantastic. Yeah.
It really does help. Now, I didn't have the benefit of having your 10 cognitive distortions, which I think are just incredible. It's got to be so freeing to know this is just a mental distortion. It's not even real. And every single person has these 10 mental distortions. We all distort reality like this. This isn't the reality. We're just distorting it. It's got to be like, freeing. I'm not actually that way. And there's not actually anything wrong with my mind. I just have this normal mental distortion. What would you say are the 2 or 3 most common mental distortions that we make as humans?
Well, when we're depressed, the common ones are self-blame, all or nothing thinking, like looking at things black and white. If I'm not a perfect dad, I'm a bad dad.
The worst.
The worst. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to give a special award to you for that. For anxiety, the most common distortions are fortune telling and mind reading. Like fortune telling, something terrible is going to happen when I get on the podcast. I'll make a fool of myself. My mind will go blank. Everyone will think I'm a fraud or something like that. Mind reading is so common in social anxiety that you're thinking that people are looking down on you and they can see that you're anxious and they're never anxious and you're not interesting and they're very interesting. All of these things, as well as magnification and minimization and emotional reasoning, is big in anxiety too. I feel anxious, therefore this airplane must be dangerous to fly on. My emotions reflect reality, and your emotions don't never reflect reality. They reflect your thoughts. And if your thoughts are distorted, your emotions will be very misleading, like those curved mirrors in amusement parks that make you look weird. And then for anger, the common distortions are other blame, blaming others, should statements directed against others, and labeling others, like he's a loser, and also kind of negative mind reading. All he cares about is himself.
We don't know any of these things.
Yeah,
all of these thoughts when I'm caught in anger, all of those thoughts I believe are 100% true.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And as soon as I start to question, but I have to write them down. Yeah. I have to get them out of my head and put them on paper so I can actually analyze.
Right.
Because if it's in my head, I'll just run in circles. That they definitely,
they definitely
did.
Snake chasing its tail.
Yes, he definitely did want
chasing its tail.
He definitely did want to hurt me. I know his motives for sure. He's a dirty, rotten scoundrel, and this wasn't fair, and it's all his fault. As soon as I get all that on paper, he definitely did want to hurt me. Well, how? I'm not in his head. How do I know he definitely did want to hurt me?
Yeah, right.
And then I can start to work with it.
It's kind of a discovery, right? Like a secret tool that you've got, a secret power, if you're willing to pick it up and use it.
Yes, and that's been really interesting too. Is that I've had friends that have come to me and said, "Hey, I could use some help, and I'm really upset about this situation." And I said, if you want to be free from this situation, you may have to not be right anymore.
Oh yeah, I'll say the truth is the greatest cause of suffering in the world today. Thinking the truth I'm right and you're wrong.
Oh yeah, right, right. And a lot of times they'll say, "Oh yeah, I want to be free from this suffering. I want to be happy," and we'll go through it, and they'll say, "No, I really know I'm still right," and they will stay in suffering, and they will leave this. We'll talk for a long while, and they'll leave still choosing to hold on to this story that they don't know is true.
Yeah.
And I'm just not as skillful as you.
Well, I love what you're saying, and maybe we'll do a part 2 show one of these days and talk about resistance, because that was the main breakthrough in Team CBT from the original cognitive therapy was all about distortions, and they're still important. But as you're pointing out, if a person has mixed feelings about letting go of anger and the idea that I'm right and they're wrong and I'm morally superior and that type of thing.
I want to dive into that work. So as a resource for me, where can I learn more about helping people with these resistances?
Well, if you want the therapeutic approach, I'll be glad to send you as a complimentary copy. I have an ebook that the people in my Tuesday training group read, and all my students, called Tools, Not Schools of Therapy, and it's on TEAM therapy, and the A is paradoxical agenda setting, and it shows the techniques that we've developed to melt away resistance. Also, if you listen to any of the live podcasts where I'm treating someone live, we do very explicit with each patient and kind of explain, now we're going to bring the resistance to conscious awareness and melt it away. And once you learn how to do that, then you really have a superpower.
Okay. I am very excited to learn how to bring the resistance to conscious awareness, because I want to make a real impact in people's lives. And I know this resistance is this piece I'm continuing
do you consider yourself a coach?
I'm a coach. Yeah, for sure.
Well, then you'd be eligible to attend my weekly Stanford training group.
Oh, I would love it. Yeah, I'm a happiness coach. I coach people on how to be happier. Yeah. And that's why I'm such a big fan of your work.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, you obviously, some people understand this very quickly and naturally and can make it work. And you're one of them. And it's kind of neat. A lot of people have so much trouble grasping this and implementing it. So, that'd be neat. If you email me, david@feelinggood.com, I'll put you in contact with Ed Walton, and I'll also send you the required course materials. I'll gift them to you, and then you can check us out and see if you like it.
I am going to attend your Tuesday classes. I can't wait to be more of a student of yours. And
cool.
And David, it's just been an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you. I know that this call is going to bring people to your work, and people who are the listener who's feeling depressed now, you have tools right on your website that can help them feel better. I just appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been a joy getting to know you and hanging out a little today. And I look forward to hanging out a bit more.
All right. Appreciate you. Before we wrap up, let's take a minute to reflect on some of the most powerful takeaways from today's incredible conversation with Dr. David Burns. 1, traditional therapy might be keeping you stuck without even meaning to. Many therapists unknowingly rely on techniques that create connection without true healing. Dr. Burns showed us why it's not enough to just talk. Real recovery needs real tools that actually work. 2, depression and anxiety are the world's oldest con games, and you don't have to fall for them anymore. Dr. Burns taught us that the cruel things we tell ourselves when we're suffering aren't even true. They're hypnotic distortions, and we can challenge them and break free from them. 3, positive thinking can actually make depression worse if done at the wrong time. When someone is hurting, what they need isn't a pep talk. They need to be deeply seen, heard, and validated with real empathy before healing can even begin. 4, most antidepressants perform no better than placebos, and belief is the true secret weapon. Decades of data show that belief itself, your own internal hope and expectation that you can get better, is often what drives healing, not the chemical imbalance story we've been told. And 5, you have a powerful tool at your fingertips, the simple act of writing down your negative thoughts that you're believing. This deceptively simple exercise, when combined with identifying mental distortions, can shift you from despair to hope faster than almost anything else can. And it's completely free. So a question for you to ponder this week: where in your life are you believing a painful thought that might not even be true? What in your life could change if you were willing to question that mental distortion? If you're ready to break free from outdated mental health myths and get real transformational tools that actually help you be happy, hit subscribe, because the Good Mood Revolution is about waking up and feeling better. We'll see you next week.